First contact's price. The space around Jupiter rippled like disturbed water. Dr. Sarah Chen watched through the Ganymede Observatory's primary telescope as reality itself seemed to tear open, disgorging ships of impossible configurations. The vessels limped through space, their hulls scarred and damaged, trailing debris like bleeding wounds. "Are you seeing this?" Her voice trembled as she broadcasted to every major space agency on Earth. After 15 years of searching the stars for signs of intelligent life, first contact was happening, but not in any way they had expected. The alien fleet numbered in the hundreds, each ship unique in design, suggesting multiple species or civilizations. They made no attempt to hide their approach, broadcasting on every conceivable frequency in dozens of different languages. The message was always the same: please help. They're coming. Within hours, Earth's major powers had convened an emergency session of the United Nations. Sarah found herself transported from her quiet observatory to the heart of New York, facing a room full of world leaders who looked as shell-shocked as she felt. "The translations are preliminary," she explained, projecting holographic representations of the alien vessels, "but we've managed to establish basic communication. They call themselves the Exodus Coalition, 17 different species who fled their home systems ahead of something they call the Void Collective." The Russian president leaned forward. "And what exactly are they fleeing from?" Sarah swallowed hard. According to their accounts, the Void Collective is unlike anything we've encountered in our scientific models. They're a civilization that has evolved beyond organic matter, existing as a quantum consciousness that spreads through space like a virus. They don't invade worlds. They consume them, breaking down all matter into its constituent parts to fuel their expansion. The room erupted in murmurs. The Chinese premier raised his hand. "And these refugees expect us, a pre-FTL civilization, to protect them." "No," Sarah corrected, "they're offering to protect us. Earth is still unknown to the collective. We have something none of their civilizations had: time to prepare." The Secretary General of the UN stood slowly. "Prepare for what exactly?" Sarah gestured, and the hologram changed to show the path of destruction the refugees had fled. Entire solar systems gone dark, converted into clouds of quantum-entangled particles that served as neural pathways for the expanding collective consciousness. "They estimate we have 18 months before the collective reaches our solar system. The refugees are offering to share their technology, their knowledge, everything they have, if we'll join them in fighting back." Fighting back, the American president scoffed. "Against something that eats solar systems." A new voice joined the conversation, harsh, clicking, translated through one of the refugees' communication devices. Ambassador Zixtal, a towering insectoid being, stepped into the chamber. Its carapace bore the scars of recent battles, and its compound eyes reflected the room's lights like fractured diamonds. "You humans have something none of our species possessed," it clicked. "You understand war. Real war. Your history is written in conflict, in overcoming impossible odds. Our civilizations evolved past warfare, embraced pure logic and reason. When the collective came, we tried to negotiate, to understand. By the time we realized negotiation was impossible, it was too late." Sarah watched the room's reaction. The fear was still there, but something else was growing in its place. The same determination she'd seen throughout human history when faced with extinction-level threats. The Secretary General spoke again. "You're asking us to fight an enemy we don't understand, with technology we've never seen, alongside species we've just met. The risk." "The risk," Zixtal interrupted, "is extinction. Not just for humanity, but for all organic life in the galaxy. We've seen your information networks, studied your history. You are a species that thrives on challenges, that grows stronger when faced with adversity. Where our civilization saw problems to be solved through pure logic, you see obstacles to be overcome through innovation and determination." Sarah stepped forward. "The refugees have already begun sharing their technical data. Their FTL theories alone would revolutionize our understanding of physics. But more importantly, they've shown us something crucial. The collective can be heard. Their last battle proved it. They just don't know how they did it. The American president raised an eyebrow. Explain. One of their ships, in a moment of desperation, attempted something their scientists had deemed impossible. They survived. More than survived. They damaged the collective. But because they dismissed warfare as primitive, lacked the tactical understanding to analyze what happened. They need us not just for our potential, but for our perspective. Ambassador Zixtel's translator crackled. We offer everything we have. Our technology, our knowledge, our remaining ships. In return, we ask for what humanity has proven it does better than any species we've encountered: the ability to face impossible odds and find a way to win. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's first contact with alien life had come with both a terrible price and an unprecedented opportunity. They weren't being asked to submit or surrender to more advanced civilizations. They were being asked to lead. The Secretary General looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each world leader. We need to vote, not just on accepting their offer, but on revealing the truth to the public. Everything changes today. Sarah looked up at the hologram, still showing the collective's path of destruction. 18 months to prepare for an enemy that had already consumed dozens of more advanced civilizations. But as she watched the world leaders in the room, she saw something the refugees probably didn't understand. Humans were never more dangerous than when backed into a corner. The vote was unanimous. As Sarah left the chamber with Ambassador Zixtel, she couldn't help but smile at the irony. Humanity had spent centuries looking to the stars for signs of intelligent life, hoping to learn from more advanced civilizations. Instead, they were about to teach the galaxy a lesson about survival. The learning curve. 3 months after first contact, the Nevada desert had transformed into humanity's greatest experiment. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of what the media had dubbed Evolution City, watching as human and alien scientists worked side by side beneath the massive dome structures that now dotted the landscape. They're doing it wrong again. Ambassador Zixtel clicked, compound eyes fixed on the testing chamber below. Inside, a team of human engineers was deliberately destroying a piece of alien technology, much to the visible distress of their extraterrestrial colleagues. No, Sarah smiled. They're doing it exactly right. You can't understand something until you know how it breaks. The chamber below housed one of the refugee fleet's quantum shield generators, technology that should have been centuries beyond human comprehension. Yet within weeks, human engineers had not only grasped its principles, but had begun improving upon them in ways that baffled their alien counterparts. Your species' approach is, Zixtel searched for the right word, mandibles twitching, chaotic. A massive spark erupted from the chamber as the shield generator overloaded, but instead of running from the failure, the human engineers rushed forward, sensors and instruments recording every aspect of the breakdown. Their alien colleagues watched in horror as months of work apparently went up in smoke. 15 minutes, called out Dr. James Rodriguez, the lead engineer. That's 3 minutes longer than the last overload. The containment modifications are working. He turned to his alien counterpart, excitement clear in his voice. Did you see how the field collapsed? That ripple pattern. It's exactly what we were looking for. The alien scientist, a crystalline being named Angstutl, vibrated in what Sarah had learned was their equivalent of confusion. But you destroyed it. Months of calibration, gone. No, James grinned, pulling up holographic data streams. We learned how it fails. And now we know how to make it fail in exactly the way we want. Sarah watched Zixtel process this. The ambassador had become her window into how the refugee species viewed humanity's unorthodox methods. Where they saw chaos, humans saw opportunity. Where they saw failure, humans saw data. Director Chen, a voice called from the command center. You need to see this. Sarah made her way to the central hub of Evolution City, where hundreds of screens monitored projects across the facility. Dr. Maya Patel, the head of biological research, stood before a display showing microscopic images of human cells. "We've been approaching the Void Collective problem from the wrong angle," Maya announced, her eyes bright with discovery. "Everyone's been thinking of them as a technological threat, but they're really a biological one, just on a quantum scale." The screen showed human cells being exposed to a simulation of the collective's quantum field. While the refugee species cells had shown immediate breakdown, human cells displayed an unexpected resistance. "It's our junk DNA," Maya explained, zooming in on genetic sequences. "All those seemingly random mutations our species accumulated through evolution. They're not random at all. Our messy, inefficient genetic code actually creates quantum noise that interferes with the collective's ability to break down organic matter." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. "You're saying humans are naturally resistant?" "Not resistant enough to stop them," Maya cautioned, "but enough to slow them down. More importantly, we might be able to amplify this effect. The refugees' genetic codes are too clean, too optimized. But ours, we're walking chaos engines." Across Evolution City, similar breakthroughs were happening daily. Human scientists and engineers approached problems with a reckless creativity that their alien counterparts found alternatively terrifying and fascinating. While the refugees had spent generations perfecting their technology, humans seemed intent on pushing everything to its breaking point and beyond. In the weapons development sector, human military engineers had taken one look at the refugees' elegant energy weapons and immediately started asking about overloading them. In the spacecraft division, test pilots insisted on trying maneuvers that the alien safety protocols had always prevented. Every failure, every explosion, every crash was celebrated as new data. "I'm beginning to understand," Zixtel said, watching a team of humans cheer as another prototype spectacularly failed. "Your species doesn't just learn from failure, you actively seek it out." Sarah nodded. "There's an old human saying, 'Success is a poor teacher.' We learn more from one catastrophic failure than 100 safe successes." The ambassador's translator crackled. "But the collective, they don't fail. They operate with perfect efficiency." "Exactly," Sarah smiled. "And that's going to be their weakness. They've never faced an enemy that turns chaos into an advantage." A loud alarm blared through Evolution City. Sarah rushed to the central monitor, where new data was streaming in from their deep space sensors. The color drained from her face. "They're ahead of schedule," she announced, her voice cutting through the sudden silence. "The Void Collective. They've changed course. We don't have 18 months anymore." "How long?" Zixtal demanded. Sarah stared at the projection, showing the collective's new trajectory. 6 months. Maybe less. Around them, humans and aliens alike froze as the news sank in. But then, something unexpected happened. The humans started smiling. "Well," James called out from his testing chamber, holding up the smoking remains of the shield generator, "guess we'll have to break things faster." As if on cue, teams across Evolution City began accelerating their work. Where their alien colleagues saw impending doom, humanity saw a challenge. They hadn't completed their preparations, hadn't perfected their adaptations of alien technology. But perhaps Sarah realized that was exactly what they needed. Solutions that weren't perfect, weren't clean, but were uniquely, chaotically human. The race against extinction had just shifted into high gear, and humanity was about to show the galaxy why betting against them was a bad idea. Breaking point. The first battle against the Void Collective began with a mistake. Lieutenant Emma Torres watched from the bridge of the HMS Defiant as the quantum sensors lit up like a Christmas tree. The collective had arrived at Pluto's orbit 3 weeks ahead of even their revised schedule. Humanity's first line of defense wasn't ready. None of their plans were ready. "All ships, combat positions," she ordered, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her stomach. The combined human refugee fleet moved into formation, a chaotic mix of sleek alien vessels and hastily retrofitted human warships. They had exactly one advantage: the element of surprise. The collective didn't know they were waiting. Lieutenant, her alien second-in-command, a Rexthi named Vel, spoke up. "The formation is unstable. The human ships aren't maintaining proper spacing." Emma allowed herself a small smile. "They're not supposed to. Chaos Protocol Alpha is in effect." The Void Collective emerged from the quantum wake like a storm of living darkness. Their form defied conventional physics, a vast cloud of quantum-entangled particles that moved with terrible purpose. Where they touched the void of space, reality itself seemed to warp and bend. "Energy readings are off the scale," Vel reported, their crystalline form vibrating with anxiety. "Their mass conversion field is active. They're trying to break down the outer system's matter." Emma took a deep breath. Everything they'd learned, every crazy experiment and catastrophic failure in Evolution City, had led to this moment. All ships, execute Chaos Protocol Alpha. Weapons free. What happened next would be studied by military historians for centuries to come. The human ships, rather than maintaining the precise formations their alien allies had used for generations, began moving in seemingly random patterns. Each captain had been given one simple instruction: be unpredictable. The Collective's first attack missed entirely. Their quantum tendrils, designed to predict and intercept logical flight patterns, found themselves grasping at empty space as human ships pulled maneuvers that no sane species would attempt. "Fire the modified shield generators," Emma commanded. Across the fleet, human engineers activated their broken versions of alien technology, shield generators deliberately designed to fail in specific ways. The resulting quantum interference pattern created gaps in the Collective's consciousness, like static in a neural network. For the first time in recorded history, the Void Collective showed signs of confusion. Their attempted matter conversion slowed as they encountered patterns they couldn't predict or analyze. "It's working." Dr. Chen's voice crackled over the command channel from her position back at Evolution City. "The quantum noise is disrupting their coherence. Push the advantage." Emma nodded to her weapons officer. "Launch the DNA bombs." Missiles streaked across space, carrying payloads developed by Dr. Patel's team, weaponized versions of humanity's messy genetic code, converted into quantum patterns that could interact with the Collective's consciousness. Where they detonated, the Collective's perfect unity fractured. But the Collective was far from defeated. Learning from their initial confusion, they began to adapt. A massive tendril of quantum energy lashed out, completely engulfing one of the refugee ships. The vessel disappeared in a burst of light as its matter was converted into more of the Collective's neural pathway. "They're adapting to our patterns," Vel warned, their crystalline form dulling with worry. "Good," Emma replied, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. "Because we're about to do something really stupid. All human ships, initiate attack pattern Omega. Refugee fleet, fall back to minimum safe distance." Vel's sensors went wild. "Lieutenant, what are you? Remember all those shield generator overload tests?" Emma's grin was fierce. "We're about to recreate them. On every ship. Simultaneously." Understanding dawned in Vel's crystalline facets, but the energy discharge. "We'll either create the biggest quantum disruption in history or tear a hole in spacetime," Emma finished. "Either way, the Collective won't be able to predict it because even we don't know what's going to happen." The human fleet moved as one, each ship pushing their modified shield generators beyond their breaking point. Energy readings spiked across every spectrum as dozens of quantum shield systems began to catastrophically fail in carefully orchestrated ways. 3 seconds to overload," Emma announced. "Brace for anything." The resulting explosion defied description. Every human ship's shield generator detonated in a unique pattern, creating a cascade of quantum interference that rippled through space like a shockwave. Where it struck the Collective, their perfect unity shattered. Portions of their consciousness became isolated, cut off from the whole. For a moment, Silence reigned across the battlefield. Then, incredibly, the collective began to retreat. Their remaining mass pulled back, accelerating away from the solar system faster than any human sensor could track. Did we win? Someone asked over the fleet channel. Emma studied her tactical display, noting the damage to their own ships, severe but survivable. No, she replied. But we just showed them something they've never seen before, unpredictability on a quantum scale. And I bet they don't like it. Back at Evolution City, Dr. Chen's voice came through clear and excited. The telemetry is incredible. The collective's retreat wasn't tactical, it was instinctive. When faced with quantum chaos they couldn't predict or control, they actually showed fear. Emma leaned back in her command chair, allowing herself to feel the fatigue of the last few hours. They had bloodied the nose of an enemy that had consumed entire civilizations. More importantly, they had proven that humanity's greatest weakness, their chaotic, unpredictable nature, could be their greatest weapon. How long until they return? She asked, already knowing the answer. Not long, Dr. Chen replied. They'll analyze what happened, try to adapt. But that's okay, because now we know something they don't. What's that? Vel asked. Emma smiled, watching her crews already beginning repairs, already thinking of new ways to create controlled chaos. We know they can bleed. 2 days after humanity's first victory against the Void Collective, Evolution City hummed with frenetic energy. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the central command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the battle data. But she wasn't looking at the tactical analyses or damage reports. Her attention was fixed on a simple neural pattern display. They're afraid, she announced to the assembled team of human and alien scientists. Not confused, not disrupted, actually afraid. Lieutenant Emma Torres, newly promoted after the battle, leaned forward in her chair. You're saying an entity that exists as pure quantum consciousness can feel fear. More than that, Dr. Maya Patel added, manipulating the holographic display to show the collective's reaction to the shield generator overloads. They showed something remarkably similar to our fight-or-flight response. When faced with quantum chaos they couldn't predict or control, they retreated instinctively. Ambassador Zixtel's mandibles clicked rapidly, their species equivalent of astonishment. But they're supposed to be beyond such primitive responses. They transcended organic existence. Did they? Sarah challenged, pulling up a new display. Or did they just convince themselves they did? Look at their base neural patterns. Beneath all that quantum complexity, they're still using the same fundamental consciousness architecture as organic beings. They didn't transcend their nature. They just changed their substrate. The implications hung in the air like a thundercloud. Every alien species present had assumed the collective was something utterly foreign, beyond organic understanding. But what if they were just another form of life, bound by the same fundamental rules and limitations as any other conscious entity? They're not gods, Emma said slowly. They're just immigrants who moved into a quantum neighborhood. And they've gotten so used to everything being perfect and predictable that they don't know how to handle chaos anymore. Maya nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. They've optimized themselves to the point of vulnerability. Every simulation, every prediction they make is based on perfect information and logical outcomes. They literally don't know how to process true randomness anymore. Which means, Sarah continued, her eyes bright with revelation, we don't need to match their power. We just need to be unpredictable enough to break their cognitive framework. The alien scientists in the room looked horrified at the idea, but the humans were already building on it. Ideas flew back and forth across the command center, each more outrageous than the last. This was humanity at its finest, taking an impossible problem and approaching it from angles no one else would consider. What if, Emma suggested, pulling up the battle footage, we're thinking too small. Instead of just creating local quantum chaos, what if we could introduce entropy into their entire neural network? Sarah's eyes widened as she followed Emma's thought process. You want to give a quantum consciousness a migraine. More than that, Emma grinned. I want to give them an existential crisis. Look at how they process information. It's all based on quantum entanglement across their entire consciousness. But entanglement is fragile. And they've never had to deal with system-wide uncertainty. Maya finished, catching on. If we could introduce enough quantum noise across their entire network simultaneously. Ambassador Zixtal vibrated with concern. The energy requirements would be astronomical. You'd need to affect quantum states across light years of space. Not necessarily. A new voice joined in. Dr. James Rodriguez strode into the command center, his clothes still singed from his latest experiment. We've been studying their quantum communication networks. They're like a nervous system. Damage one part, and the pain signals travel everywhere. He pulled up his own data, showing the results of his shield generator experiments. What if we could turn their own network against them? Use their quantum entanglement to propagate chaos throughout their entire consciousness. The room fell silent as the full implications sank in. They weren't just talking about fighting the collective anymore. They were talking about fundamentally changing how it thought, how it processed reality itself. It would be like introducing a virus, Sarah said slowly. Not a computer virus or a biological one, but a virus of chaos. Uncertainty propagating through their neural network at quantum speeds. They'd have two choices, Emma added, her tactical mind already working through the scenarios. Either shut down their quantum networks to isolate the chaos, essentially lobotomizing themselves, or maintain their unity and be forced to experience uncertainty on a fundamental level. Maya finished. Their perfect, predictable world would become permanently unpredictable. The alien scientists looked at each other in confusion and horror. The idea of deliberately introducing chaos into the most ordered consciousness in the galaxy seemed like madness. But the humans in the room were already moving to action, breaking into teams to tackle different aspects of the problem. We'll need to modify the shield generator overload technique, James said, pulling up design schematics. Create a cascading effect that can propagate through their quantum network. And we'll need to understand exactly how their consciousness processes uncertainty, Maya added. Find the cognitive weak points where chaos would be most disruptive. Sarah looked around the room, watching humans and aliens working together to turn an insane idea into reality. This was humanity's true strength, not just their ability to think outside the box, but their willingness to break the box entirely and build something new from the pieces. How long until they return? Ambassador Zixtal asked, mandibles twitching nervously. Emma checked the long-range sensors. Based on their retreat velocity and standard attack patterns, 4 days, maybe 5. Sarah nodded grimly. Then we have 4 days to figure out how to give a quantum consciousness an existential crisis. Just another day at Evolution City. As the teams dispersed to begin their work, Sarah caught Emma's eye. They both knew the stakes. If they were wrong, if their crazy plan failed, Earth would fall like so many worlds before it. But if they were right, if they could introduce true chaos into the most ordered system in the galaxy, they might not just save Earth. They might fundamentally change the nature of consciousness itself. The race was on, and humanity was about to attempt its greatest act of creative destruction yet. Evolution's children. The Void Collective returned exactly when Dr. Sarah Chen predicted, not because they were predictable, but because their very nature demanded it. They emerged from quantum space like an approaching storm, their consciousness spread across millions of quantum-entangled particles, ready to consume another solar system. But this time, humanity was ready. Lieutenant Emma Torres stood on the bridge of the HMS Defiant, now the flagship of humanity's combined fleet. The ship's quantum sensors registered the collective's mass as larger than before. They'd consumed 2 uninhabited systems during their retreat, growing stronger. All ships report ready, Emma announced to the assembled fleet. Human vessels intermixed with refugee ships in seemingly random patterns, their modified shield generators humming with potential energy. Operation Uncertainty is go. Dr. James Rodriguez's voice crackled over the command channel from his position in Evolution City. Remember, we only get one shot at this. The quantum virus has to propagate through their entire neural network before they can isolate it. Sarah's voice joined in. Their consciousness is most vulnerable during active matter conversion. When they try to consume something, they have to fully extend their quantum network. That's our window. Emma nodded, though her hands were tight on the command console. They were about to attempt something that would either save the galaxy or spectacularly fail. All ships, maintain position. Let them make the first move. The collective advanced, their quantum tendrils reaching out to begin the conversion process. They'd learned from their last encounter, adjusting their patterns to account for human unpredictability. But they couldn't have predicted this. They're starting conversion. Maya reported from her station monitoring the collective's neural patterns. Quantum network is extending. Now. All ships, execute Protocol Omega Chaos, Emma ordered. Across the fleet, modified shield generators began their carefully calculated overload sequences. But unlike last time, they weren't trying to create a defensive barrier. Instead, each generator produced a unique quantum interference pattern, designed to resonate with specific frequencies in the collective's neural network. The effect was instant and devastating. The collective's quantum tendrils spasmed as conflicting information flooded their consciousness. Where there should have been perfect order and predictability, chaos bloomed like digital flowers. The virus is propagating, Maya announced, her voice tense with excitement. Their quantum network is trying to compensate, but it's just spreading the uncertainty faster. Through the Defiance view screen, Emma watched as the collective's form began to fluctuate wildly. Their perfectly ordered quantum particles began moving in unpredictable patterns, like a supercomputer trying to divide by zero. They're attempting to segment their consciousness, Sarah reported, trying to isolate the contaminated sections. But it was too late. The quantum virus of uncertainty had already spread too far, carried by the collective's own neural pathways. Their attempt to partition their consciousness only created more chaos as different segments of their being began operating on conflicting information. Ambassador Zixtal, watching from Evolution City, clicked in astonishment. They're experiencing true uncertainty for the first time in their existence. Their perfect unity is becoming human. Sarah finished softly. They're experiencing the world the way organic life does, with all its beautiful, terrifying uncertainty. The collective's reaction was unlike anything they'd predicted. Instead of retreating or attacking, their entire form began to transform. The quantum particles that made up their consciousness started reorganizing themselves, not in their usual perfect patterns, but in new, chaotic configurations. Their neural architecture is evolving, Maya reported, her voice filled with wonder. They're not fighting the uncertainty anymore. They're adapting to it. Emma tensed, ready to order the fleet to defensive positions, but something strange was happening. The collective's aggressive posture had changed. Their quantum tendrils withdrew, no longer seeking to consume and convert. A signal emanated from the collective, broadcasting on all frequencies. But unlike their usual perfect, precise communications, this one was different. Messy, emotional, almost organic. They're trying to talk to us, Sarah announced, not as a unified consciousness, but as individuals. The uncertainty virus didn't destroy them. It freed them. The message, when translated, was simple but profound. We remember now. We remember what it was to be alive. Over the next hours, the true story of the Void Collective emerged. They had been organic once, eons ago. In their quest for perfection, they had transformed themselves into quantum consciousness, believing they could transcend the limitations of organic life. But in doing so, they had lost something essential, the beautiful uncertainty that makes life worth living. Humanity's gift of chaos had awakened something long dormant in their collective consciousness. The virus of uncertainty hadn't destroyed their unity. It had restored their diversity. Different segments of their consciousness began developing distinct personalities, unique perspectives, individual thoughts. They're not going to consume any more systems, Sarah announced, reading through their continuing communications. They want to learn from us. They want to remember how to live with uncertainty, how to evolve through chaos rather than perfect order. Emma watched as the collective's form continued to shift and change, becoming something neither purely quantum or purely organic, but something new entirely. So we didn't just save humanity, she said slowly. We saved them too. Ambassador Zixtel's translator crackled. You humans never cease to amaze. When faced with an enemy that consumed worlds, you didn't just fight them. You changed them, made them better. Sarah smiled, watching the data streams that showed the collective's continuing transformation. That's what humanity does best. We don't just adapt to chaos. We share it, because sometimes the most perfect thing in the universe is imperfection itself. As the combined fleet began their return journey to Earth, they left behind a changed galaxy. The Void Collective, once the greatest threat to organic life, was becoming something new. A civilization learning to balance unity with diversity, perfection with chaos, certainty with the beautiful uncertainty that makes consciousness truly alive. And humanity, the species that had introduced chaos to the most ordered beings in the galaxy, had earned not just their survival, but their place among the stars. They had proved that their greatest weakness, their unpredictability, their chaos, their beautiful imperfection, was actually their greatest strength. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly how it should be.